12th. Do we have we're calling this meeting to order. Do we have a quorum? Oh, excuse me. Returning clerk, could you read the appeal statement?
Yes, sir. Pursuant to the provisions of Section 2 points... I'm sorry? Oh. My apologies. Pursuant to the provisions of Section 2.68.030 of the Metropolitan Code of Laws, please take notice that decisions of the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County Community Review Board may be appealed to the Chancery Court of Davidson County for review under a common law writ of certiorari. Any appeal must be filed within 60 days after entry of a final decision by the board. Any person or other entity considering an appeal should consult with an attorney to ensure that time and procedural requirements are met.
All right, do we have a quorum? You got 3 board members here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Next thing on the agenda, we have the sexual misconduct policy update.
Okay. So from the last time that I had contact with the Metropolitan Human Resources Department director, I was told that they would have something for us sometime mid-February. I think it was supposed to be February the 11th. And so, which would have been yesterday. And so I don't have any emails from them. I know that she and I had spoken a few weeks ago about this. And so I don't have any new information related to the sexual misconduct report. And but I will say that this has been something that's ongoing and is very important, and we need to, have some kind of response about it. So.
Okay. If possible, just send her an email and let her know when our regular board meeting will be, and hopefully by that time we will get some information from them.
Okay.
Because I think the 27th is our regular board meeting.
The 27th is the regular board meeting. I will say that we sent this information in September. And so hopefully we'll have some kind of response before the board meeting, but I will do that.
If not, what problem need to happen if we don't get anything by the 27th? Just send an email to the mayor and let him know that we've tried in a reasonable amount of time, and it's hopefully that he could make a phone call and see if they can step up the pace on this. Yes, Kim, you have one. Come in.
Is the meeting on the 24th or the 27th? Just clarifying.
24th. I'm sorry, it's on the 24th. I'm sorry, I'm looking right at it right here. Thank you for that.
Okay.
All right. Investigation status of 61-page complaints. What we have on that?
On the investigation status of the 61-page complaint, so the last time we talked about this, I had sent Attorney Ed Stanton from Butler and Snow an email asking for a follow-up and a meeting, and that would have been, hold on one second. Yeah, I sent a meeting request so it's been some months, a few months ago. And he had responded to that saying that once they finished the investigation, that he would follow up with me and entertain a meeting with us. And so on a few days ago, member Haddock, who was also part of those conversations with myself and the Butler Snow team, wrote a letter on behalf of this communication that she and I had already established, requesting some specifics from them, like would they, how long would it be for this investigation to be complete? What were some of the next steps? Would they release this information to the community as they had suggested? So we're just waiting a reply about that.
Okay, that's great. I think that is a very sensitive issue, and hopefully that we can hear something in the near future on that. When you got these sensitive investigations, it can take a little time. We just have to be a little patient on that. Okay, next thing on the agenda, we have the TBI MOU meeting.
Yes, so I'm going to have I'm going to kind of pivot to you, Mr. Clark.
I will accept your pivot. And so, yes, to report generally on the TBI MOU meeting, we prepared an MOU draft that we circulated to General Counsel and other members of the TBI in advance of the meeting. We attended the meeting with Director Fitchard, with Judge Brown, and with
Wynn.
I forget the gentleman's Wyatt.
Member Wynn.
Mark Wynn. I was thinking Mark Wyatt. My apologies. Member Wynn. The concerns raised by the TBI were essentially that they simply cannot produce anything outside of the public record, whether it's to CRB or a member of the public or a news media organization. And we were able to identify that there's some, I guess, common ground that we could establish that would be helpful to the CRB's purposes and also would not impede the TBI or frustrate, their statutory confidentiality duties. And that would be establishing an MOU where we get priority access to documentary records instead of audio-video files, because the redaction of audio-video files takes a considerable amount of time. And with the officer-involved shooting cases, particularly, there can be, sets of body-worn camera footage or other materials, and there's essentially one person at TBI whose job it is to go through and make sure that everything is redacted that has to be redacted statutorily. So what we're working on now, and we have already put together a very abbreviated, revised draft based on those conversations, is something that would allow us to get those documents separately from the audio-video files without waiting on that full redaction. So that way, the CRB would be able to access the TBI's reports at the earliest possible, juncture in the process. And if we're able to do that seems like it would be sort of the most we could hope for, and also something, like I said, that would be helpful and further the board's interests. And so that's where we're at. And if we've already gone back and forth on one round of revision on that, and if we're able to get something over to the TBI in the next week, I think that would be very good progress on that front. I'll defer further comment to Judge Brown.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I thought the meeting went well. I'm not sure they're all that familiar with what we do or can do at this point, but the discussion I thought went well. There wasn't any real pushback other than they just quote the statute that says what they can do. And I think with the ability to get some of the materials on a priority, if we can get that in, under the statute, I think that's about all we're going to be able to do. And but if we can get priority, and they didn't seem resistant to that, they just point out they got one person doing it, and so if we can get priority with that person, and we pointed out that how Metro has been giving it to us where we get materials, and so hopefully we'll get as good a MOU as we can get, given the boundaries of the legislature.
Well, it seems like you're in the right step to develop a relationship where you can communicate and they be able to give us some information, instead of just closing the door on us. And this is something new for them, for our community review board to come and to assist and ask for a meeting and see if we can get information, allowed to get information from them to work on some cases that would be good for us. But I just really appreciate them taking out the time to meet with us, because really they could have delayed it or didn't have to meet with us at all. But it's a good start in the right direction. Board Member Heather.
Thank you. Quick question. So it doesn't sound like we're going to get any body cam footage from TBI, but we're getting that body cam footage from Metro or the DA's office, from Metro PD. Is there any, sorry.
Yeah, so the expectation is that by the point in the process where TBI is able to release anything, the Metro OPA investigation will also have these same files, and we can get the audio video directly from Metro OPA with the same sort of parameters we have right now with the MOU. And we're not limiting our ability to get those ultimately from the TBI, but we will just separate the production of documents from the production of audio and video. So that way there's not a bottleneck based on something that might be duplicative of what the board would already get from OPA.
Okay, thank you. And is there any circumstance in which there would be body cam footage in the possession of TBI that, I can't imagine one, but I never know, so I'm just asking, is there any circumstance where TBI might have footage that the Metro Police Department wouldn't, if we're investigating a case?
I would say yes, because TBI shows up on the investigation pretty quickly, Jill, because when you used to be able to there. So it's possible they might have some video they took apart from the police department, but because they do show up pretty quick on a death or a shooting.
I believe so, yes. I believe that maybe in that circumstance, but I do recall in another circumstance where body-worn camera footage was, body cam footage was not available by MMPD, but was available through.
I'm so sorry. I'm looking for Heather.
That's fine. Thank you.
I'm so sorry.
No problem, thank you.
I thought I left this in the car.
Okay. All right.
Get in the bathroom, apparently.
I can. There was in the shooting death of Daniel Hambrick, video camera footage was available. The TBI was able to retrieve it from MMPS, and so that was in the TBI was able to retrieve that.
MMPS, the
Public schools. And so that it wasn't in the custody of MMPD. And so for me, I would say, yes, that could be an issue that I think that we're trying to address in this MOU agreement.
But ultimately, we're not limiting our ability to get footage from TBI. So if there is another institution that has footage available, we could still get that from TBI eventually.
Yes.
I just want to make sure that was still an option.
Yes.
Okay.
Good, great question.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you had your mic on, Kim? No, that's okay. Okay, sound like it's been a good week.
I would say so. It's been a busy week, of course, but yes.
Okay. Judge Brown?
I think the one thing else that came out of the meeting is we're going to have to get an MOU with the district attorney's office, because they're going to control in a lot of ways when the investigation is complete. So I think we need to start exploring, because right now we don't really have I don't think an effective MOU with the district attorney's office. So I think that's something we need to have our council at least start the ball rolling to see what we can do with them, because they're going to control in many respects when the investigation's complete, whether either an indictment or closing the case.
Yes, that's correct. And also with respect to officer-involved shooting incidents, the district attorney's office has a special delegation of authority where the district attorney can at any point deem investigative materials to be public records. So in terms of local officials, they definitely have the most power over what becomes a public record when, with respect to officer-involved shootings. And I'll note that I have reached out to DA Funk, and he was unavailable this week, but we're expecting to touch base on Tuesday. So that's where we're at on that front.
You and I have discussed that.
So you have a meeting on Tuesday?
I don't have a meeting. I have a touch base
Touch
on
base.
the phone. Yeah.
Because it seems like we've been trying to touch base since November.
Yeah, it's been a process. It's been a process. So I will endeavor to have a meeting set up at the earliest opportunity.
DA Funk seemed to be a reasonable person, but there are incidents and cases where information is not allowed to be released at the time while the investigation is going on, you know.
And I would say that the set of concerns that any district attorney would have in an officer-involved shooting case is very different from what the board may have, and so I think it may be difficult to get some strict agreement about exactly how that particular authority I just referenced would be used in every case. But nonetheless, there are still other relevant subsets of issues about Rule 16 or the determination of access to records that the DA's office holds where criminal cases are pending, and establishing an MOU can at least, set out the process that we're going to go by as a default. So
that's the time, like you say, arrange a meet with them so we can develop a dialogue with them, so let them know that we need their support as well as they need ours. It might not seem like they need ours, but the investigation that we do could be a determining factor if we get in court. They determine what the police department has done, and then look at what our organization have done, and they can kind of compare the notes. And if it's a wide discrepancy in the investigation, then it may fare well for the complainant. But if it's close investigation compared out with theirs, we see similar ideas as the police department or the DA's office, and then there's almost a clean cut case. But what I'm saying, more likely, that what we come up with, and they can kind of compare ours with the police department and see what has been developed in the process. And so it's most important that we work together and see what we can get done.
And I'm sorry, go ahead. Well, I would just, full transparency, I would not put the blame on General Funk for not getting anything done since November. I would say that's mostly my fault. I've worked on other things, and Mr. Brazil was here for a bit. He went out on leave, and setting up something with General Funk kind of fell to the bottom of my priority list. So I'll take full responsibility for that.
Well, I'm glad you did, because that's a burning part for me. You know, I wasn't the chair at the time, but I would prefer you had to put it high up on the proprietor list. You know, when you put it at the bottom, that means it's not an interest to you. You know, and I appreciate you admitting to that.
Yes, sir.
Now that you understand that it's a high priority for us, I'm concerned.
Number one.
Thank you.
You know, given the interrelation between the MOUs, I would suggest you use the same MOU board to work both with the TBI and the district attorney. I think that's makes most efficient use of our time.
It sounds good. I don't have a problem with it. If it's good with the board, it's good with me, you know. As long as we got some dedicated workers to take on that task. You know, we don't want to overload anybody, you know. But I do expect good work and competent work. And Heather?
I just wanted to say that wasn't, my questioning wasn't a criticism of you, even though you're taking blame for the delay, but I just wanted to see if you needed any help or if we needed to take a different tactic, but I'm sure you can take care of it.
Thank you. And I'm going to check on that now. Don't get me wrong, because I will call you on that. Okay. And I don't want to be mean, and I want us to do the best that we can, because we got fingers pointing at us already, you know. And we do the best with what we have, you know, and I'd like to provide efficient work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have any public comments? Okay.
No,
You want me to read the statement?
No. we
there's
don't have-
nobody here.
Okay.
Okay.
What's not on the agenda, I would prefer to have some cases that we're looking at to close or present at the meeting. We did some at the last meeting, which is good. I want to try to get some at each meeting. If it ain't
We'll have them for the meeting. You want them on this agenda?
What I just thought it would be brought up. I didn't know.
Oh, okay. No.
It wasn't on the agenda, so I didn't know it was coming up or not. But as long as we got a good understanding that we would try to solve some cases, go through them at.
That'll be at every board meeting, unless something extraordinary happens.
We could present it and make some recommendation that whether we need to send them back or something needs to be done for special training, that nature. But at least let the public know that we are working on the cases and we're dealing with them at each one of our regular meetings. And
yeah,
that's good. Yes.
And on that subject, I will mention that Director Fitchard has been working with us on identifying sort of a new way of categorizing the complaints, because we've heard Director Fitchard mention the backlog pretty frequently, and so we discussed, like, what do we mean when we're saying backlog? And really, there's a very big chunk of those cases that are not within the control of the board. There are cases that are simply working through the statutory process whereby, OPA conducts its investigation and the board is simply awaiting the results and receipt of documents following that investigation. And so I believe that Director Fitchard anticipates being able to present, a modification to the policies of the Community Review Board that would more appropriately characterize the status of these complaints. And that way, anyone who's interested can see the data and know that, okay, we don't just have, say, 70 cases that are in a backlog because we've not been able to sit down and review them. It's that we have 40 cases that are in process with OPA. We have 7 cases that are on hold with the district attorney's office, and then we have 5 cases that are under review. And so that's the kind of terminology that's going to be very helpful to, show the public and just, help the board understand where we're at with respect to each one of those cases.
That make a lot of sense, and people can see that you're doing the work, and you got the classification of it. It's not sitting on hold. That you are doing the work, and that sounds better to me.
Right. And so what happens with that is when you get your compliance, we send you that status report, that monthly report that comes with your documents. In there, we'll have the language change in there too, so you can see kind of where cases are. And so, and technically they're in there now, just they'll be categorized differently.
Yeah, I think the first thing I did when I got on the board was trying to get what I called a 6-month report. Of any case pending more than 6 months, we had a report on it. And I think you're right. That report can break the cases down. If it's been more than 6 months, break it down to where it is. And you're right. Some of them are clearly not going to happen because they've got reports outstanding and such. But if you have what I refer to as a 6-month report, one, it identifies something that's dropped through, hopefully catch anything that's dropped through the cracks. And 2, it gives us a shorthand version where a board member can look and say, okay, we got 40 cases and 10 of them are ready for final review or, so forth. But I think that 6-month report that really breaks our cases down is very helpful for us to see if there are backlogs, what we can do to correct it. Some things are just backed up. I mean, we don't have the final OPR or whatever it is report.
The CRR, yeah. I think you're right, and I think that how Wesley has and how we've worked through this is to say that, we know that because of this process of not having an MOU agreement, and now that we have one, we've worked through the process of how cases will be delivered and how quickly we'll get the information. And so, and language is important. I think that, in all that we do, language is really important, how we are presenting to the public. And so when I was talking to Wesley about that, and I said, when we talk about a backlog, it does seem very negative, not only on our end, but also on MMPD's end. And so I would say that we have cases that are in process, meaning they have went to MMPD. Those cases are working through the investigation process. Some of those cases are also Rule 16 cases. Some of those cases are at the police department's redaction process. And just like TBI was very clear that they have one person doing the redaction, MMPD has 2 people doing the redaction, not only for us, but for the entire public. And
I wouldn't have any problem not calling it a backlog, but calling it just case status.
Yeah, that's what we call it, case status. So we have that report already created. And so the cases are coming to us really quickly because they now have 10 people working on them. So it's always this weird dynamic. I think we've received maybe 5 cases or 6 in the month of January. I can't remember the number exactly, where they are finished now. And so we have to do our review. We still only have 3 people doing reviews, though. So it's always going to be a little bit, the time differentiates differently when you have 10 people doing them and 3 people doing the reviews. So hopefully our budget ask will get some approval.
Yeah. Have we gotten any feedback from the budget yet?
I was going to talk about that.
Article in the paper this morning that the mayor was going to be tightening up.
Let me say this, and I'm glad you brought it up because I had some on my mind about the budget. do we have something in there where we can give what you call it, some kind of like recognize an employee for a bonus? If it's $500,000, I believe in taking care of good employees.
I do too. I mean, my staff can tell you right now. Don't I do? Right? I do believe in employee incentives, and we were just talking about that today. Like,
Okay.
But as it pertains to a financial incentive, what usually happens is they put a certain amount of money in the budget for merit increases. They don't necessarily recognize what you call a bonus in
Okay.
Metro, but you can give. A percentage, like a 3% or 1%, or 6% or 16%. If up to whatever, to the amount of funding that you have available for outstanding work in your departments.
I'm glad you mentioned that, and you had to make it clear to me because we had to kind of compare our staff with other departments on the same level, which I don't think is fair because we do different type work and
Right.
work a lot harder than a lot of people in the other department. Well, our people really work their fingers down to the bone. Other people just sit around and answer the telephone. And
I'm not going to comment on that.
I just would like to see our staff taken care of.
I agree. I mean, I would love to give bonuses to the staff. I think the staff has endured a lot and lots of changes and just hardship, especially, this whole process of the abolishment, and staff members, were really concerned about the continuation of their employment. They also suffered a layoff, and all of these things that add additional trauma and stress. And so I am really appreciative of how the council and the mayor stood up to create this department and try to really carefully curate an instance where our staff members didn't suffer a real hardship during this process of changing from one department to another. And so, but I would love to always give employees who have, withstood the test of time, but also do excellent work, extra incentives and bonuses, a financial bonus, not just, a gift card or a Chick-fil-A meal or some kind of dinner or whatever. But yeah.
The dinners don't pay bills. Kind of just elaborate on about the Metro vehicle for your department.
Okay, so let me tell you a little bit about the budget, and I want the author of our budget, and I mean, she did an excellent job. The system, right? It had some glitches, and it had, because a lot of people were putting their budgets in on the same day. So at one point ours was wiped out. We had to start over. And so Katura Barnett was very, very concerned about that, but did an excellent job of getting it in on time and answering the many, many, many questions that were involved. And so, Katura, you want to speak to the budget a little bit?
Okay. So, like Jill stated, we worked hard last week with getting all the budget modification requests in for our department for the next fiscal year. We absolutely took the suggestions of the council at the last meeting that we had, the special call meeting, and we made sure those requests were also added to the budget in regards to the vehicle for the community engagement division, and then also increasing our request for compliance monitors. And so your question in regards to the vehicle, we were able to get with Fleet management under General Service Department. And so the process for requesting a vehicle is to contact them and put in our request with their department. They add it to their 4% request. And so we were able to get some specs on vehicles that would meet our requirements. And we finalized with a vehicle. It was kind of like a Ford Expedition, I believe. And so we submitted that to the department as a request of what we would need, why we need it. Of course, we let them know that we have staff that are hauling a lot of equipment, multiple staff hauling a lot of equipment. And so right now, we are in the process of just waiting to see if that request will be approved. And if approved by their department, then they will let us know. And then we can move forward with our budget. How it'll work is the maintenance for the vehicle will come out of general services, but if we have anything in regards to extra expenses, which for our department, because we have staff that park at a parking garage, we would just need to make sure that we have additional parking for that, which is fine because we can work with our building management to get that. So, so right now we're just waiting to hear back to see what happens with the approval.
Mm-hmm. That's the first step of the budget, right? That's the budget that went to the mayor's office. And then we also had to include a budget equity tool with that. And so, we don't have, I don't think we have copies of that. But anyway, it was a very detailed, 10-page report that we had to submit alongside the budget. And of course, with the mayor's budget, he had 3 priorities, and so those 3 priorities, how you move, how you work,
how Nashville moves, how Nashville works, and how Nashville grows.
Yeah, so you had to put each one of your budget modification requests. Modification mean you're adding to your budget. And so you had to categorize it in one of those, put it in one of those categories. So we were able to do that. I think the only thing that really changed from what you guys voted on was the requests for additional funds for parking and the vehicle.
Yes.
And then rent, right?
Yeah, well, with our rent and our budget, because of our move to this new location, our budget for the current fiscal year that we are in, the monies for rent and building are under general services budget. But we were informed earlier this year, probably in January or right before the budget started, that that money would be transferred back to our budget. So that would be an additional expenses coming out of the community review board budget, and we just have to maintain those payments just as we did before when we were at the Washington Square building. It's just been 1 year that we did not have it in our budget because of that move. They told us typically when a department relocates, general services takes over that
billing process.
That billing process for at least a year. So we'll have that come back to our budget. The rent for our building and our civil contract is those are only things that we have to make sure that we have money for, that we're going to continue to do moving forward.
Right. So that's different than what we presented to you, I think, because we hadn't added that in because we got that last minute note. So whatever our annual budget monies, rent monies are, they are in the budget now, because they sent them back. And so when we were going through that abolishment, they took all the money out and put it in general services budget, is what she was saying. So we have that back. So that was slightly different than what you voted on. And then, of course, the additional parking for this vehicle that we now have requested.
Sounds like we may get the vehicle.
I hope so. I hope we get a couple of the positions as well. Yeah, so.
It look great, and if you got other departments got vehicles where they go from different parts of town and provide services, certainly so could we, because we've I've been in the audience and they not know I'm there, and I said, remember from the community review board here, but they driving their own vehicle,
Yeah.
and I don't think it's fair.
Well, I appreciate that because, I mean, of course, when you're thinking through all of this, I appreciate our staff. So they're just team players and everybody comes in and loads their vehicles down. But it's wear and tear on your vehicle. I mean, it really is. And so we have 6 or 7 people loading up their vehicles. We have a lot of equipment, to do a community engagement, an outreach event. It takes a lot of work. And
let me say this right here, and like the idea came to me when you got guys could drive out of county to home, and we taxpayers got to pay for the gas and repair of the vehicles. And I remember a time you couldn't live out of county and work on the police department. But now it got approved. And my thing is, we done a survey, and it shows that you protect the area where you live it better than if you live out of county. You live out of county, you don't worry about it. That's what they do, But if you live there, you're concerned because that could get festered in your particular neighborhood. And I remember talking with some guys from L.A. where they had rented a trailer, about 5 of them, had a residence in the county, and they were sharing the trailer, to show that's where they lived at, and stuff like that. And they did not. But if we give them the leeway to do that, and we had to pay the tax fund, my thing is, if you live out of county, and you live at county, well, work there in that county. You're taking jobs from folks that live here. That's how I feel about it. I probably don't need to be personal about it, but it's just how I feel. And I think your department need a vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
So
I think that's it. And for the budget, unless you have any other questions.
In the new business.
I don't have. I did want to make one announcement so that you guys. I'll say this at the board meeting. We are planning on having a public safety town hall in the month of July. Hopefully the second or third week of July. Probably third week. So just mark your calendar, save the date. We'll send you some save the dates out. But we plan on hosting a big community town hall. So hopefully some other departments will join in on it. And and we want this to become a annual event for the CRB.
Okay. Just as long as it's not too close to the 4th of July,
No, it'll be after the 4th of July, like the third week of July, before school starts, of course.
Some people, do things with their family around the 4th, and, whether in town or out of town, So, sound like a good idea. Just keep me, make sure I'm reminded of that so I won't be traveling anywhere.
And I will be trying to pull you in for some suggestions and help with it. So if I send you an email and set a date so that we can talk about, and strategize about, kind of like what the agenda would look like and maybe some experts that would come and talk about public safety initiatives and issues that we're facing now, especially with what we are hearing about immigration and all these other things and how it affects public safety in general.
Well, immigration is serious business. A lot of work is being done in this city from people that's not legal. I met a guy the other day, has 3 employed with him. And he's hoping that nothing happened because they do good work, And we had a youth that got, last year, a youth that was working on one of the buildings downtown fell and got hurt, and apparently it wasn't legal, But people are human beings, period. Go ahead.
Just a point I want to add on to that. I attended the FUSIS LPR panel with Chief Drake and a couple council people, and one of the things that came up around immigration and the Metro Police Department was administrative warrants and a lot of concerns around that. I think Chief Drake said at that point that that they had never seen an administrative warrant, or maybe I'll go back and try to see what was said about that. But I do think it is a concern, especially with a lot of community members. So I wonder if we could invite maybe some of the immigrant legal firms, immigrant organizations. You've got Turk or Tennessee Justice for Our Neighbors who do work in the community. If that's going to be a issue that's kind of enmeshed with Metro PD, then it might be something to have them come speak on as well.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
A second. Okay. This meeting is officially open, and I appreciate everyone for their attendance. Been a long day for me, and I'm lucky to be here. I tell you, I get called in to work because somebody went to the Super Bowl and they not back here. You know.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information on this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.